Hello. My name is Will Barron. I'm the founder of salesman.org, and welcome to this week's live chat. Hopefully this is all working because the live chat software seems to be freaking out right now. So we're just going to go with it and see if you are watching this and you're watching it live, drop a comment, say hello, tell me where you're from, tell me what your name is, just so I can see that we're actually online, because who knows if we're online or not. Transpreet Singh, I'll come to your question in a second, mate. I appreciate the question. So we are online because it's on YouTube. Okay, great. What's the date today? The date is Monday, the 31st of May. Today is a bank holiday here in the UK. So I will go for about half an hour or so, and then I'm going to go and head off and hang out with my partner, my dog, my missus and my dog, and have some tea. I think it's a holiday in the US. Forgive me, because I have no idea what the holiday is. Is it Memorial Day? I feel like that's an important holiday that I should probably know a little bit more about, but I don't, so there we have it. So if you're new to these live chats, you ask your sales, business, entrepreneurship, life questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'll do my frigging best to answer them, as long as they're somewhat appropriate. I'll do my best to answer them. We'll start the live chat with some questions from the Selling Made Simple community over at salesman.org, and so let's jump right in. Let's not faff around. So the first question comes from my man Eli, who says, Will, my brother, thank you for being an inspiration to me, man. I did not know that this is the first question, but I appreciate it. Thank you for being an inspiration to me, man. Your help and guidance has made me so passionate about sales and business. I appreciate you, mate. I have a fun one for the show that help everyone watching, since social selling is becoming more necessary. Would you be able to briefly break down and rate my LinkedIn profile live? Give my full permission. Okay, Eli, what I will do is I will break down your LinkedIn profile. It'll be more than just a quick look through, and I'll do it and I'll post it in the Selling Made Simple community. I'll do a video and post it in there for you, so I can give you a bit more value there, as opposed to just kind of whisking through it on a live chat. P.S. I love BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What's your favorite submission? You look like a high elbow guillotine guy. Favorite submission. So just because I'm so long and lanky, and I'm not trained in like a year now since COVID really hit, but I guess we'll go through my favorite and then what I would actually catch people with. Triangles, 9 times out of 10 are what I'd get people with, because I'm so light, skinny, lanky, I'd end up on my ass defending, and so with long legs you can throw them up. But I also like darces, anything where long limbs, guillotines, anything where long limbs can grab hold of someone's neck. And I feel like the neck is usually the weakest part of people's games to defend. People can defend triangles. People can defend. People tend to be more used to you hanging off their back than you doing a kind of a guillotine, whether you're standing, seated, whatever it is. So yeah, and in the gi specifically, all kinds of like collar ties and stuff like that. They're my favorites. Okay, Lauren says or asks even, what are some creative ways that you have landed meetings? So I don't like to leverage creativity. I know this is kind of goes against the premise of the question here, Lauren. So bear with me. In medical device sales, I only ever worked for the top companies in the space. I would literally go up to the operating room door. I'd have one meeting booked, and then I would go to every other operating room where there was a urologist, gynecologist, colorectal surgeons I knew I could sell to. I would hold up my badge, and they'd recognize the logo of the company, and they'd proactively invite me into the operating room to have a chat, to book an appointment, whatever it was. So it's not very creative, but I'd always leverage the brand equity that I had in medical device sales. Now, when I want to book a meeting, I will, so numerous things, and I've talked about this publicly on the podcast before. If there is someone in the sales space that I want to sell to, perhaps as a VP of sales, someone who's not a complete chump, someone who I respect, I will invite them on the podcast. Get that interaction going at the end of the show. Hey, I'd love to, once we wrap up the show, wrap up the recording, just go, hey, maybe I can help you. Maybe your team would benefit from some of the stuff I've talked about on the show and I've fed in there, and pitch them our product or service on the back of that. Now, I don't do this regularly. Maybe I've done it 2 or 3 times with like mega companies. It would be very difficult to get in front of these VPs or executives just by cold calling, cold emailing. So I've leveraged the podcast, but I also leverage the platform that I have all of the time, referrals, that networking side of things that tends to be less talked about now when it's probably more important and more easy to network and get referrals than ever before. I can jump on LinkedIn, go back and forth with someone, engage with them, promote their content, get a smile on their face and say, hey, I see that you're connected with XYZ. Perhaps you can drop me an email. And 9 times out of 10, people will help you out. You've just got to get the right connections at the right time. Let me just pull up the whiteboard of truth and quota hitting right here. And 2 things you want to focus on when you are doing, let's say, when you're doing your networking. You don't want to go after people where there's you don't want to go after people linearly like this, because you're just going to waste so much time unless the deal is here, right? And you've got an introduction from a VP to a director or whatever it is. What you want to do is use this hub and spoke model. So if this is you here, what you want to do is go after hubs. And these are people with lots of connections that could benefit you. Perhaps there's another hub here. And these individuals, so this individual here and this individual here, are people like me, right? Big audience, done nearly like 1,000 podcast episodes. That's nearly 1,000 people that I could probably say, drop an email to introduce you and connect you with on the back of, hey, I've worked with this person, this person, this person. I've had, you were on my podcast a few months ago. Would you like an introduction to these people? So with regards to networking, get on LinkedIn, engage with the people that you want to be introduced to, or at worst, kind of go one step away from them and network with these individuals. Best case scenario, find the hubs. I call this hub and spoke. Find the hubs, and these individuals will not just give you one referral, they'll give you countless referrals over the course of your career. And it's another reason why I massively recommend you have to stay in the same company. It doesn't have to be the same job. You can go from sales to marketing to executive positions, back down to sales, whatever it is. But when you do that and you stay within the same industry for a reasonable amount of time, 5 to 10 years, these hub spokes, these network opportunities, these tend to materialize automatically. You don't need to necessarily go out of your way to procure them, to arrange them. A lot of them will just come by serendipity. That's a good word, serendipity. Okay. Next question from Michael Stone, my man. What are President Club's trips really like? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're just a US thing, in which case you might not have experience in them, Will. I wonder if there's any UK equivalent. So I've never been on an equivalent to a President Club. In the UK, maybe you'd get like a Rolex, or you'd get, vouchers to go and do something. I don't know. None of the companies I've ever worked at have had a President's Club where you'd go away for the weekend, or you'd go away essentially on a business holiday. But my experience from speaking to or what other people told me their experiences is that it'll be a kind of an executive retreat that us lowly salespeople get to hang out on. So the executives will be there doing meetings, and it's somewhat semi-formal during the day. Then in the evenings, you go out for drinks, go and play golf, whatever it is, go and relax. And it's just a bit of a treat. And I would rather have a nice Rolex than the equivalent spent on some kind of bullshit retreat. So I'd probably turn it down if I got offered one anyway. But I don't think it's something that really happens in the UK. I think it's more of a US thing. Okay. Holland asks, what's the best way to explain leaving a job in less than a year on my CV? Okay, so do you want to completely BS it, or do you want to nudge and massage the truth a little bit? I would encourage you to massage the truth. So if you've been at a company for 10 years, let's pull this back up. This bad boy. So this is your CV, right? If you've been at a company this is your timeline. You started in sales, you were there for 10 years, you were there for 5 years, you were there for another 10 years, and now this one just didn't work out, and it was only a year long that you were at the company. Who cares? Nobody's going to be bothered. Literally, hiring managers are going to be like, okay, you've made a mistake, or the company wasn't what they told you it was going to be. There was some kind of variable. COVID hit. There was a global pandemic within the past 2 years, whatever it is. But if your sales career looks like this, with just 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, that is a worry to me as someone who's hiring salespeople right now over at salesman.org. That tells me that you are not. This brings me to the assumption. This could be right or wrong, but as a hiring manager, this brings me to the assumption that you are not dedicated. I don't want you to be dedicated to the company. I want you to be dedicated to yourself, your career. And perhaps it shows a lack of discipline as well. Or maybe it shows that you just don't get on with people. You're too aggressive, or you go into the marketplace, you burn it, and then you jump back out again. I'd be slightly hesitant. I would be asking questions if your career is this. So that changes your question there, Holland, of if it's just 1 year in the past job, then don't worry about it. Just be relatively open, honest. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. But yeah, be open and honest about it. If you're only working these 1-2 year roles and you're chopping and changing jobs every 18 months, which is the trend in B2B sales right now, and I'm not talking about going from SDR to account executive or going within the organization laterally or up and down. If you're changing companies every 18 months, suck it up and just stay at the company for 2-3 years. Just get it done. You'll see so many benefits from just that prolonged stretch of time at one company that it will be worth it. Okay. Okay, what do we have? Alex, my man, Alex Berman. You can. I'll link Alex's YouTube channel in the comments below this when the show goes live on our podcast and all that kind of stuff. It says, "Love you, Will. Good luck with the stream. I appreciate it, mate." I think you're crushing me in YouTube subscribers right now, so I'll link to Alex's content. I appreciate the love, my friend. Okay, Transpreet asks, how can I sell health supplements over the phone? Okay, so that's not really the sales that I deal with on this YouTube channel, unless you're selling 1,000 units of them to a health food store. So I'm not really going to go down this route and answer your question. Why? Because I'm not an expert in business to consumer sales. My only advice would be if I've got the wrong end of the stick here and you're selling if you're selling health supplements to individuals over the phone, it's not where you want to be long term because it doesn't scale. You've got no opportunity to sell 20,000 of them. That's what's going to help you crush quotas and make a ton of money. Vera, I'm probably butchering that, I apologize, asks, Will, please interview for your podcast Jeremy Miner. I'm going to just, as we do this, I'm going to Google young Jeremy Miner. We'll see who we're at here. An international sales trainer and speaker, CEO of 7th Level Communication. Cool. I will leave that tab open. I will do some more research, and if he's a good fit, we'll get him on the show. Chris asks or says, I know podcasting is a game of patience. After 1 year of podcasting, I'm getting 500 downloads a week. Congratulations. Based on your experience, what's the best way to get more downloads? Okay, Chris, you understand the game of podcasting. It's a long-term kind of thing here, and you're not going to like the answer either, unfortunately. I guess there's two things here. One, head over to salesman.org/grow, GROW. I'm doing a AMA, Ask Me Anything, in a couple of weeks on a HubSpot event. And if you go to that link, you'll get discounted tickets, all that kind of stuff. So I will be diving into growing a podcast. Very literally every single strategy I've ever used, what's worked, what hasn't worked, the Grow events, that's salesman.org/grow. So check that out. But yeah, so I did two things with the show, Chris. One, well, look, there's two main things, right? And then lots of other stuff spins off them. So one, it's just time. So if you look at the growth of the Salesman podcast, and I'm not exaggerating here. I'm literally not exaggerating. There is a line, a slightly more higher diagonal line, and then a line. Now, these lines right here, that's a better way of pointing them out, they are just totally flat. As in, every month we get similarly, a number, I don't know the number, 20,000 more downloads a month. It's not that. 2,000 more downloads a month, month over month over month. And we have done now for 6 years. The only time that we got this leap was when I partnered with HubSpot. I did a bunch of live podcasts. I think it's still available on iTunes now. If you search for Salesman Podcast Live, we went to San Francisco, we went to London, we went to Chicago, we did a bunch of different events all around the world. And HubSpot sponsored all of the content, and they really helped us out. They did a great deal with us. And I, rather than cashing that money and putting it in my bank and buying a ridiculous car, buying the GTR, what I did was I just took all of that revenue and I dumped it into, which was what was super hot right at the time. It might be Instagram ads right now, Instagram video ads. But I dumped it all into Facebook video ads. And for each event, we were getting more than 1 million views on these videos from the revenue that HubSpot had sponsored the event with. And so that's what really blew us up and got us that initial real bit of traction. One, the partnership with HubSpot of, hey, because HubSpot's a cool company, right? We are linked with them inextricably. Every video had our logo and the HubSpot logo in the top corners. We rebranded the show and all our graphics in HubSpot Orange. And then these videos got hundreds of thousands of views, tens of thousands of views across 20, 30, 40 videos from the event. So in total, millions of views altogether, and that's what really shot us up. So you've got two things. One, just stick with it longer than everyone else. And I'm going to come back to something that's more important than any of this in a second. But stick with it longer than anyone else, and you'll have success. People give up, especially if you're competing against other business to business shows where it's not an individual like me who runs a small business who runs the podcast. When you're competing against, I don't know, there's loads of B2B large organizations who started podcasts in the past 5 years, and we've crushed them, and now they no longer do the podcast anymore because the person running it has left the role, or they've had a promotion, have changed tactics. And so just me in this little studio, right, have crushed all these hundreds of $1 million brands. So you just got to stick at it long enough and then see if you can partner with a bigger company. See what value you can bring to them, and not just do a sponsorship where you take the cash and stick it in your pocket. See if you can do some kind of deal where you say, hey, I don't want to walk away from this partnership with anything other than more views, because longer term that will lead to more ads revenue, sponsorship revenue, if that's the avenue that you're going down. We're going to take everything that you give us and we're going to dump it into probably Instagram ads right now, Instagram stories, just to drive massive awareness over and over and over to the podcast. So I could talk about this for hours, and I will talk about this for hours at the HubSpot Grow event, so make sure to check that out. But the most important thing, and this is across podcasts, across marketing, and especially for sales, ask yourself why you're doing the podcast. Why are you creating this content? What's the point? So for us, I did this completely backwards. I did this the wrong way. In hindsight, it's worked out, and there's been multiple things that have we've looked out on over the years that have helped us grow to the audience. So we get 700,000 downloads an episode. That'd be nice. 700,000 downloads a month across all our content right now. On YouTube, I think we get between 50 and 100,000 views on the podcast content on top of that as well. And a lot of it is luck, a lot of it is just doing it for long enough. A lot of it is getting into podcasting when I had to explain what a podcast was to a lot of people. But I did it completely backwards. In hindsight, I wish I would have created a podcast that, as you're getting there, Chris, gets 500 downloads a week. But those 500 downloads are people that I really want to close big deals with. So I should have done a podcast for urologists in the UK and had 500 downloads a week, 300 downloads a month. It doesn't matter. But one of these big medical device companies would pay 10, 20 grand a month to be in front of that audience. Just like that. They wouldn't even care. They would literally just throw that cash at you for that tiny amount of download numbers because you're in front of the right people. We did all this backwards in that we were like, hey, if we just get a massive audience, good things will happen. And good things have happened. But that was a much more stupid business decision, a much more stupid entrepreneurship decision than what I should have done, which is micro niche content for a valuable select few of individuals. And this goes with your prospecting. This goes with creating content, with your social selling. You're building your personal brand. You're building thought leadership. Find a crowd of people, and it could be, don't go for CEOs. Everyone wants to be in front of CEOs. It could be chief revenue officers. It's a relatively new role, right? There's not that many content marketing plays against that avatar right now. In 10 years, there will be. It'll be overcrowded in 10 years. But I'd create a podcast for CROs. I would go to HubSpot, Salesforce, every big player in the space, Outreach.io, Gong, Chorus, whoever's got cash, who's got tons of just venture capital cash to throw at these kind of deals. And I would say, hey, 2, 3, 5, 10 grand a month. You can be in front of this audience day after day after day, and that's what I focus on. So there you go. That was a lot of stuff just thrown at you. Alan says, these podcasts are great. Cheers, man. You are great, Alan. I appreciate you. Okay, we'll go for another 5-10 minutes or so. What else do we have? Tim asks, I am an SDR or sales development representative. At what point should I get paid commission on my work? It doesn't seem well defined. Most SDRs, a company. Okay. Well, one, it should be clearly defined because you should have a contract in place. So look at your contract. Your contract should very literally state that typically it's when how to describe this without using gobbledygook. When you prospect someone, maybe they're a sales qualified lead. You might have other analogies and ways of describing that, or a lot of people call it an SQL. But if me as a sales leader, right, as someone, again, a hiring sales manager right now, if I just give you $100 for everyone that you get in contact with and book a meeting on, then you're just going to book a load of crappy meetings. It's going to clog up the rest of the sales pipeline, and no deals are going to get done because all of my account executives and the closers on the back end, if we're using this kind of split sales funnel model with individuals doing different parts of the sales process, they're just going to be just overladen with just crappy leads. So what you're probably going to find in your contract is that you're going to get paid a commission on. You generate a lead or you generate a meeting. You're going to have an account executive get on there, going to do discovery. It's probably going to then go to a demo. And at that point, the account executive, AE, is going to say, hey, this person is qualified. They're going to use the kind of the classic is the BANT qualification framework of budget, authority, need, and timing. And then you're going to get your commission on the back of that. Probably 90 days after you've done all this work. So it becomes very difficult. I appreciate this because it's very difficult to track. Hey, I've booked 27 meetings, but I've only been paid $200 commission on the back of this. So I would just go back, look at your contract because it should be clearly defined. If it isn't clearly defined, then you're in a legal predicament where you could have an amazing month, and then your boss just turns around, or the organization turns around and says, hey, we're not paying you any of this. So see what's in the contract. If it's not airtight, you need to get clarification in writing. The best way to go about this, just be nonchalant. Email your boss and say, hey, I'm not sure when I should be getting commissions. Can you just jot it down in 3 or 4 steps what I need to do to satisfy my job requirements and get this commission? And then if they're wishy-washy about telling you that over an email, I would be assuming that something is up and there's some shenanigans at play. But yeah, basically when the prospect is qualified, they've probably been through some kind of demo. That's when you should be getting your commissions on the back of that. Chromio asks, and I assume this isn't Chromio the band. I saw Chromio maybe 15 years ago. It was the weirdest gig I've ever been to, bar none. Chromio was like this electronic band. I used to hang out with a lad called Paul. It was a massive scene step. He wanted to go. The band were on stage and everyone was like dancing, kind of like ballroom dancing, when it was kind of like cool, like poppy, electro, rocky music, in which case you would assume that everyone would be just crushed forward having a great time. Everyone was like ballroom dancing. It was bizarre. It was full of... I'm nerdy, right? I love technology. I love all the studio stuff. They were a bunch of weirdo nerds. Anyway, Chromio. I'm feeling really burnt out on my sales role. What should my financial goals be to get me motivated again? I'm only here because of the money. Right. We'll probably wrap up the show with this. Because I feel like this is a poignant message. And the pandemic and everything that's gone on in the past 18 months should really have crystallized this in people's minds. You're in a B2B sales role to help yourself. 99% of jobs, excluding perhaps like my girlfriend's a doctor. Maybe there's and she would say there's probably a large chunk of the reason why she's a doctor is that she wants to help people. She gets real fulfillment from. She works with elderly. She works with the elderly. She's a geriatrician. She would tell you she gets lots of fulfillment on helping people, or all the stuff that the palliative care, all that kind of stuff that goes on in elderly medicine. You're not that. You're a B2B salesperson. Your job, literally, the goal of your job is to drive revenue, and top line heading underneath is to build brand awareness and create a great culture in the community of our customers and all this kind of stuff, which has tangible value to an organization, but you're there to drive revenue. Now, I'm not saying be a dick about this, of course, but if your goal is to drive revenue, then your reasons for being at work are that you're going to get compensated for the revenue that you drive. It's fair, right? I know. There's starting to bubble up these debates of whether salespeople should get paid commissions, and they should. In my mind, sales is not a job that anyone should do. The stress, the rejection, the upskilling, the product knowledge that you have to learn, and you've got to have all these soft skills as well. You can't do a sales role. You're not going to attract high quality salespeople, business people, unless you give them a commission. So our goal is to drive revenue. We're getting compensated for that via commission. Let's make these a few assumptions, and that'll frame up the conversation here. Now, you can only do this for so long. There's very few people, and they tend to be on the scale of psychopath, who want to be a frontline salesperson for 40, 50 years, however long your working career is. And that might offend some people, but all the people I know that are career B2B salespeople, they tend to be slightly crazy. And that can work in your way. And there's studies on this from an executive perspective, on the CEO perspective. There's data that shows that CEOs have more, not psychopathic, I think it might be psychopathic tendencies than people low down the food chain. So, and being a psychopath doesn't necessarily mean that you're out there like with a hatchet, like chopping people's heads off. It can lead to assertiveness, aggressiveness, which in certain business situations, such as an executive role, can be beneficial. So, well, that's one side. Your only goal, if you're driving if your goal is to drive, your only goal personally, if the company's goal for you is to drive revenue and pay you as much money as possible, for you, it should be to retire early. So if you're feeling burnt out, I would really, really have a sit down. And I've done this, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, the Sales podcast. We talk about it in the community over at salesman.org, the Selling Made Simple community. Somewhat regularly, it comes up. Your goal is to retire as quick as possible. Your goal in B2B sales is to go in, leverage the company that you're working for, leverage the fact that you essentially can, most decent roles will have uncapped commissions. You're going to crush your role. You're going to crush the market. You're going to go and absolutely just kill it. You're going to work your nuts off. You're going to push harder than what you should do for long-term sustainability. And on the back of that, you've got cash then to invest, not to throw into a stupid house, which then locks you into a $3,000 mortgage every month for the next 30 years. Don't do that. Pay off your mortgage. And I know this is like kind of the opposite of the Grant Cardone advice, right? I appreciate that, where bigger is always better, more is always better. But you don't need a private jet. You don't need a Rolls Royce. People who buy Rolls Royce, Ferrari makes more money on merchandise than it does selling cars. Ferrari is a business, builds a business on the back of, you're not good enough for this, and so we're going to tease this red logo, this red color, this yellow logo in front of you for your whole of your life, and make you feel bad because you're never going to achieve it, and then a few people will achieve it. But they make far more money on merchandise than they do the actual cars. The goal in B2B sales: get in, make a ton of money, get a load of experience, which is great if you want to become an entrepreneur, if you want to go into business. It's great if you want to go into marketing because you can actually sell, unlike most marketers who just fancy, arty, messing around, just don't know anything about the numbers, don't know why they're creating content, don't understand that it's all to drive revenue. You can take all that information, all that knowledge, and you can go into other roles. But in B2B sales, for most salespeople, most people get in 5, 10 years, build your nest egg, and then invest that so that you can work either part-time or you can continue building and you can have the Rolls Royce, or you can go full Grant Cardone if you like and buy a ton of rental property and all that kind of stuff. That's great as well. But the goal for anyone, and if you're feeling that burnout, is to think, hey, if I stick another 5, 10 years into this now, I'm going to earn the cash that, how can I put this without implicating anyone. In the US, in the UK, doctor salaries are, for example, are fixed, right? If you work for the NHS, which is government run essentially, you can, if you find out what band pay grade a doctor's on, you can look up how much they earn. In sales, you can not do 5 years of medicine at university. You don't have to then have your job constantly on the line and all the pressure for one mistake and you just struck off and you can never be a doctor again. You don't have any of that. You've literally got a product, a marketplace. If you work for a good company, they've done a lot of the marketing and this brand building for you, and you can go out and just sell it. And you can earn 2, 3, 10 times more than what a doctor can. And that should be exciting to you. That should get you over burnout. You sit down just to have a moment to yourself and say, hey, I'm going to commit the next 5 to 10 years and I'm going to earn what other people earn within 30, 40 or 50. And again, invest that right, then you've got the rest of your life ahead of you. Hopefully that was valuable. Okay, a few more and then we will wrap up. My man, Sam Dunning. Where's the bank holiday whiskey or beer? In fact, Sam, I've been going back and forth with Sam Dunning, and you sent me a lovely bottle of whiskey, mate, for helping you out with something, and I'm actually drinking that at the moment, about halfway through it. I would love to have Benjamin on the show. I've never actually engaged with Benjamin. He's commented on some of my posts, but I've never actually had a phone call with him or had him on a Skype interview or something. So I would have Benjamin on the show for sure. We can do that. Okay. Ayush will answer your question and then we'll wrap things up. What should be the percentage distribution between professional and personal relationship with a prospect? So the answer is, it depends, right? I'll give you my experience. If I'm selling two fronts here, if I'm selling medical devices to surgeons, a surgeon doesn't give a shit about what I'm doing at the weekend. A surgeon does not care at all that me and Sam Dunning are going back and forth and he's asking about whiskey and I'm going to tell him this and I'm going to get this live chat to create this content. Surgeons do not give a shit about any of that. They want you to go in. They want you to be extremely knowledgeable about the product that you're selling because people's lives are on the line on the back of you training these surgeons as you're going through your product demos and that side of things. And then as long as you're not a complete arsehole, you can go in there and have a bit of banter with them and be relatively engaging and somewhat slightly entertaining. You don't need to be a clown. But as long as you're not just like a complete wet drip that as soon as you walk in the operating room, you just suck the life out of things, then that's all you need. You don't need any personal. I never told anyone when I worked at Olympus, Carl Storz, Johnson Matthey, nobody knew anything what I was doing in the background, the time people I was dating or what was going on with my family and all that kind of stuff. Nobody knew nothing, both in work and then my customers as well, and I always had success. So gone are the days where you can go to the golf course and take someone out or take them out for a nice meal and subtly kind of nudge them and get them on board, because people's jobs are on the line with the budget that they're going to spend with you. If they make a irrational decision to spend money with you when there's a better alternative available and clear to all, because now we're in these big buying circles, right? It's not you're not just selling to one person, you sell to multiple people within an account. When these other people get hold of the fact that, oh, you've been playing golf with this dude, this girl's been taking you out for tea and you're like whining and dining you, then the trust element falls apart and the buyer will not risk their job and their reputation internally on you. And I believe in the past, in the 80s and 90s, that was more of the case. You could get away with it. So I would say hesitantly, because the answer is it does depend, right? Clearly, likability is one of the 6 laws of influence. So likability does affect your ability to influence other people, but you don't need to have any personal relationship with your buyer because they just don't care. They're too busy. If you're selling to the right person who's got a problem big enough for you to get in the door and have a clean, smooth sale, they don't care about the fact you just got a new cat. You don't need any, you don't really need to leverage, you don't really need to lean on anything personal. So there we go. I hope that was useful. We'll wrap things up there. I appreciate all your questions. I appreciate everyone in the Selling Made Simple community who dropped their questions in the community over there as well. I will join you, what day are we on? Monday? I'll join you on Thursday. We'll get back to the normal schedule, and I'll join you on Thursday for another live chat. What have we got coming up this week in content? We've got some cool videos on this YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed already, head over to salesman.org/YouTube. If you're watching this on LinkedIn or Twitch, the one subscriber that we have on Twitch, you can subscribe to all the content on YouTube. Make sure to click that like button. And if you leave a comment or question below, if you're watching this after it's gone out and it's not live, I will still answer your questions next week. I'll pull all them and add them to the top of the show. Right, everyone, I will speak with you later on in the week. This was the Selling Made Simple live chat. And cheers, guys. Thanks.